Welcome, everybody, again to another edition of Living on Music. I'm Steve Houck. Welcome, and I hope all of you are well as we finish up a summer. I know people are bummed. Who wants to say goodbye to a summer, especially when you're able to go outside so much more often than in the late fall and winter. But I hope everybody at least was able to do some of the things they couldn't do in 2021, like live music. I know there's a lot of people who are still not comfortable with going to live venues, even outside. We've gone to a couple, Jiffy Lube, Freeman Stage in Delaware, just to see some of our favorite bands. And, it's felt relatively safe to very safe in different parts of the venues. And you just have to do what you feel comfortable with. It's all part of kind of what's going on now. We just played JVs Saturday night, and it was pretty wild to be inside, but what a thrill to be back playing again. It's the second time over the last couple of months that Jess and I have played JVs, and we hope to be back out there. A little tease: November 19th, my band Automatic is scheduled to play at JV's in a primetime gig, and I'll keep you posted on that. And if you feel comfortable in November, please join us. It's the first rock and roll show with a big band I've done in, a year and a half to 2 years. Can't wait. If you look behind me, it's DC9. DC9 is a club on 9th Street in Washington, D.C. Basically, it was formed in 2004. It's a very well-known venue in town. And it is the place where my guest tonight, one of the area's most talented and revered musicians, and has been going at it for about 13 years as a pure musician, Justin Trawick. It was the last gig that he and his band, The Common Good, played before the pandemic hit. And we have a clip tonight that is so fun and unique of what they decided to do when they were done with this gig. And they didn't know this was going to be their last gig for months and months and months. But they did this amazing gesture to the audience. And we have the clip coming up when we're talking to Justin, and we will bring you DC9 with The Common Good. But Justin Trawick, again, is a real special singer, songwriter, performer. Has always stays very busy, whether it's with some of his solo work, some duos, especially during the pandemic, and also his band, The Common Good, which formed about 6 or 7 years ago. So we're going to be talking to him about his current state of affairs with Common Good and how they're coming out of this, how he's dealt with the last year, which we'll ask people for a little while yet, and then maybe we'll scoff it off to the side and just talk about anything but the pandemic. But it's important with musicians. Justin was on CNN. He was covered by numerous organizations around the world talking about his efforts during the pandemic. And we'll be talking to him about that, as well as beforehand with The Common Good and his evolution through music. He's been of this area since he was born in Leesburg, and basically is a part of this area, but also has spread out into the East with his wonderful music. And we will be talking to him about that in a moment. Real quick, just a couple of quick plugs for my good friends out there. Laura Segaris was on a couple of weeks ago. You gotta get this record and help not only help her with the kind of the evolution and the process of the record. It's due out. It's called Get in the Mood, and it's a holiday record. I mean, and I've had her on the show. You can go to my YouTube channel. It's Steve Houck, Living on Music with Steve Houck on YouTube, and you can find the Laura Segaris Dave Chappell show. And it's so wonderful to talk to her about this record. So if you want to hear more about it, go to YouTube, the YouTube channel. And what you need to do is go to that website. It's actually the Indiegogo, but it's a bit.ly /get in the mood -support. And it is a wonderful way to help local musicians, and also to just, make yourself feel good about listening to local music, especially in the holidays. And it is a wonderful, piece that she's done, and it's her first getting holiday record. Get in the mood. You get in the mood with Laura Segaris, ASAP. Okay. There's a couple of events real quick, and we've had people on the show that are involved in both. On Saturday, October 2nd, we just had Tim Reed, the founder of We Rock Cancer, on, and they will be doing a We Rock Cancer event at Frying Pan Farm in Herndon. There's still some general admission tickets left. It's going to be great, and it's inside and out as well, at a beautiful renovated farm kind of room hall, and it's all for the benefit of We Rock Cancer. And We Rock Cancer, again, concentrates on skin cancer, and their goal is to lower it as the as one of the most often found cancers. But it is a way to find it is getting your skin checked, and it's not hard, and they can find it. Happened to me within the last 8 or 9 months. I got basal cell, and it's gone, and they were able to go in and cut it out. So that's what We Rock Cancer does. Another event, Sound Impact, I had on about 3 months ago, a fabulous bunch of ladies who discovered it. They're all classical musician, virtuosos, and decided we're going to take our talents and we're going to make something special. And boy, have they. Sound Impact is an incredible organization, and they are doing their Sound Impact Soiree, which I will be emceeing. I'm really excited. They asked me, and I was very, very honored. So it's at the Decatur House, which is one of the oldest living houses in Washington, D.C. Beautiful location. I mean, it is something very special. And if you go to Sound Impact, it's actually that tiny URL will send you right to the page. And you can buy tickets, you can buy sponsorships, you can, if you have the resources, you can really become an important part of Sound Impact on this event and going forward. And there'll be an auction with amazing art on the campus of Decatur House, and also live music from the musicians that form Sound Impact. So please try to go to that event. I'm really excited again to be involved, and we will hopefully see you on October 3rd. Real quick, plugging Living on Music on YouTube. If you can go there, if you have time, subscribe, and that would be wonderful. We're upping our ante with YouTube, and subscriptions are the key. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you're a member of the Living on Music Nation, just go there to Living on Music on Facebook, on YouTube, Living on Music with Steve Houck, and subscribe. And that's where everything currently is being posted. And we are very excited to grow it on YouTube. And the Living on Music page is a place to go for all of the Living on Music kind of nation contributions. And we have some wonderful stuff that comes up all the time. Live local music, live international or national stars, pictures, polls. I mean, it is we have over 620 members now, and it's just been a wonderful ride, and we're going to keep it going. So go to the Living on Music page. And real quick, a bonus for tonight. You see the Living on Music mason jar? Yes, you do, even though it becomes invisible when I hold it up like that. Living on Music with Steve Houck. We have these fun little mason jars, and I'd love to give them away. And so first 5 people I see with a comment on the Living on Music page, just post or comment or message anything you want and say, I want a mug. Then I will message you back at your address and send you a Living on Music mug. So the first 5 people that I get those messages from based on this show will get one of these fun things. And they're actually really fun. Thanks. Well, about 2 months ago, and I've mentioned this before for different reasons on Living on Music, I had the honor of emceeing Cancer Can Rock event, a benefit show, Nova Fest, at 868 Vineyards up in Virginia. Just a wonderful, wonderful place, sprawling, wonderful grounds and winery, and just an amazing place. And the lineup of musicians that were there that day, I had already interviewed several of them, but hadn't met them in person. It had only been in a virtual interview over the last year and a half. So it was not only wonderful to meet those persons that I hadn't met, like Carly Harvey, Holly Montgomery, Jenny Langer, Todd Wright, Jason Massey, an amazing roster of people, but also to meet people like Juliana McDowell, who I brought on the show, other people that I'm hoping to have on the show very soon, like Gary Smallwood, really looking forward, and Lauren Calv. And also my old buddy Cal Everett was singing that day, and I got him on the show, and we did it. You can see that on YouTube as well. What a wild show that was. He has an amazing run in music, and a new record, and a new Halloween children's book out. So that's Cal Everett. But I also got a chance to meet somebody I wanted to have in the show for months, Justin Trawick. And Justin had a wonderful set there that afternoon, as everybody did, and he is just so wonderfully talented. And I talked about having him on again, meeting him, and I said, I'd love to have you on, and he said, fine. And lo and behold, here we are tonight. Justin is immersed in a brand of urban folk rock, he likes to call it, as a solo singer and a band frontman. A number of people come to mind. One that he has mentioned and that people have mentioned, Ryan Adams. He's got a bit of a Ryan Adams feel to his writing, and I'm a major fan of Ryan Adams' songwriting. And a number of other people. Has got raw emotional energy that comes from very personable and personal lyrics. He's been performing in this area and along the East Coast since around 2006. In February 2014, the Whammies came into his lap, and he won Song of the Year and Folk Artist of the Year, and that was a wonderful thing. And we'll talk about that. And actually, he's going to play that song live that he won the Whammy for. And around 2013-14, he decided to get a band together and try to go forth for a while with a specific band, and that is The Common Good. And they are something very special as well. Just a real neat blend of kind of mandolin, fiddle, guitar, vocals, flute, just a wonderful sound. And he's been doing stuff with them. And then, of course, boom, they got hit. And we'll talk about what they have been doing since the beginning of this. They released their first EP 3 years ago called the River Wash EP, and it's got some wonderful stuff on, and we'll hear some of that. And, again, Justin got through this pandemic very, very constructively and productively in a lot of ways, but also faced some personal health issues that were pretty striking, and nothing to do with COVID, but still something that actually close to what I've happened with my vocal situation as a singer. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I got to tell you, Justin Trawick has built a brand that, began here locally, but extends far beyond his home base. He's very, very special musician and a really neat guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm Living on Music welcome to Justin Trawick. Justin Trawick, welcome to Living on Music, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Your name has come up often over the last 16 months, and it's been all good, so no worries there. People who have done your 9, and we'll talk about the 9 and things like that, and meeting you at the Cancer Can Rock thing, I was like, finally I get to meet him, and then 2 months, 3 months later, we are here. So
do you remember the Cancer Can Rock event? Do you remember the black clouds that we were driving into that day?
I know. Yeah, we were standing there because I got there early because I was emceeing it. And I looked up, and when those clouds were coming, and I'm like, this is going to be a monsoon. And it kind of was. And then everybody got to play a shorter set. But look, welcome to Living on Music. We're going to talk about your evolution in music and things like that. But a big part of the beginning here is what you have done over the last 16 months. And you faced your own, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You had a health thing going, and that was part of it. But it was also sequestering and quarantining as a musician. Now you did a lot. We'll talk about that in a second. You did the Zoom shows, which were amazing for the Holocaust Museum, PBS, on and on. You performed with Common Good and on the block. You did those benefits, and it was wonderful. You benefited there. You did a lot, and we'll talk specifically about some of that. How are you doing as a musician and as a singer-songwriter and an emotional writer, a wonderful guy? How are you doing after all this?
I'm doing okay. I think that the pandemic is this crazy thing that allowed a lot of people, including me, to discover things that we should have potentially always had been doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
New ways of interacting and communicating with people, and new ways of performing, and alternative forms of income, sources of income,
Yes.
um, merch ideas that I would have never had, and
Right.
also just like, personal things for your own health, getting out into the world and getting back into nature. We're all so many, you and I are so much more outdoors people now than
Yeah.
we were before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we have become so much more intimately aware of the weather patterns.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, I am like a budding meteorologist now. I never knew how much weather patterns change from hour to hour to when you suddenly had to depend on it not to rain for your 23rd outdoor show
Totally.
in a 6 month period.
Yeah, we had to deal. We played Dewey and in a duo, and here came the monsoony clouds, and it was always with the phone looking at the radar, and it happened at another gig. Well, see, what's beautiful is that you were able to find some things that were important to you. You did a bunch of things. You did some duo shows online with a number of people, Lauren Lemunyon and Mike Scoglio and people. You really did some wonderful things. We're going to start off with a short little clip just so people can kind of see Justin Trawick during this time, and not on a bad outlet, and not a bad portal, CNN. Here's a little bit of Justin on CNN.
Welcome back. So, how are professional musicians able to perform when their usual venues are shut down because of social distancing? Well, here's a look at two of them, based in Washington, D.C., who've taken to Facebook Live to work their craft and stay connected to fans.
I don't know, we've probably had 20 to 30 shows canceled so far. Nice to see you. Hello, James. My name is Justin Trawick. I'm a singer-songwriter right here from Washington, D.C. I'm the band leader for Justin Trawick and the Common Good, and kind of momentarily, while they're with us, forget about their day, forget about what's going on in their lives, forget about the fact that they can't as easily, if at all, get out of their homes right now.
Yeah, not a bad place, Justin, to, during all the hell and finding ways to survive. The fact that you're on CNN is a wonderful outlet for you from a marketing standpoint, and also it had to be kind of fun to do some of some of this extra work with people.
Yeah, um, you know, so when the when things really started to start ramping up with COVID last year, around March the 12th, was the first day that I actually canceled a show.
Wow.
I actually canceled it myself before places were proactively canceling. I proactively canceled. It was the Songwriter Series, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like with 9 of us on stage together, that was a smart plan.
Mm-hmm.
I had actually had a little bit of my own COVID scare
Oh.
the week before that. We were aware of COVID, I guess the week or week before, even a couple weeks before. And every year I pretend to not be a musician for about 5 to 6 days, and I am a photographer's assistant for the CAA men's basketball tournament.
Oh, well,
And
fun.
my buddy Rafael Suarez is the sports photographer that always gets hired for them, and then he always hires me to do sport editing on the fly. And that was at that particular year, last year. It was the first year at the new Mystics basketball stadium
Yes.
in DC,
Yep.
and that was like the week before the 12th. I think it was like the 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th, and we were being told to wash our hands, and we were being told to not share utensils and stuff like that.
Right.
But we still weren't totally distancing. We definitely weren't wearing masks, and we were still somewhat going about our normal life.
Yep.
I remember I was at the grocery store, I think on like the 11th, the 10th or 11th, and my friend Ralph called me. He's like, so there were several instances of COVID while we were there. The referee got it, and one of the staff members got it, and that was the first time that it really kind of dawned on me what was kind of going on.
Yeah.
But on March 12th is when I canceled my very first show, and we started doing these Facebook Live shows immediately.
Yeah.
Me and Lauren Lemunyon,
Yep.
and we got the attention of a friend of mine who works for Reuters. Um, and
Nice.
his name is Kevin. He's a really great guy, and you know, this live streaming was so new. I mean, truthfully, I think that Chris Martin from Coldplay famously did it on March the 16th.
Oh,
And we did it on March the 12th. I'm not saying that we invented it, but I do believe that we did it so quickly that that's why we got some news coverage from it. My friend Kevin reached out to me, and he's pretty high up in Reuters. And he's like, hey, do you mind if I come over with a camera and film you for your very next show? He filmed us for our second Facebook Live show.
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, Justin, a month before that was your last gig. And you didn't know it was going to be your last gig.
That's
and
true.
And it was here behind me. I'm at the DC9, as I introed in the intro, where you did your final show, and you did a wonderful kind of twist of the process. And I've been to, you know, again, hundreds of shows like you, and played a bunch, and never seen a band do this. I'm trying to remember if anybody ever had. And so we're going to show this clip. Justin, give a brief intro to it and say, and give me an idea of who, you know, I came up with the idea. It's probably you, and said, we're going to walk out in the audience and play for them with all their phones shooting everything. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, that was February the 28th, and that was our very last club gig before everything kind of started shutting down.
Right.
I was trying to think of a really good idea. I had been trying to think of a really good idea for a submission for the 2020 Tiny Desk contest, which is something that NPR does every year.
Yep.
Whoever wins that gets to do a Tiny Desk concert at Bob Boylan's desk at NPR. And in classic Justin Trawick form, I do everything at the last minute. And literally, like, I think that video was supposed to be turned in like a couple days later, and that night, during that day on the 28th, I suddenly dawned on me, well, what if we unplugged all of our instruments, walked into the audience, and asked everyone to surround us, take out their phones, and film us, and then email me all the footage, and we'd create an entirely fan-filmed Tiny Desk video. We actually did bring a table from part of the room and put it next to us, and like I think a flower pot or something.
Yep.
So that, you know, we were following the rules. But it was great, and NPR, we're not really hip enough to win any of these contests, but I've now been blogged about by NPR both this year and last year because of what we did was so unique.
Yes. Yeah, there's another one we're going to show about a minute of that's very unique, and with the sheep, which is pretty incredible. This, you guys, is a wonderful moment with Justin and the Common Good. It shows the wonderful nature of these guys. It shows Justin's bonding with his band and with his fans. Here we go to DC9 for a little bit of goodbye.
Joe, you good?
Right here. Good.
All right, there you are.
You're good.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Chances to hang my hat where I belong, to find a place that I can call home. The ice cream's a metaphor, making your way. You hang your hat where you most like to stay, but of course you all know this. I just thought that I would explain, 'cause I'm sure you've all realized the one I'm convincing is me. All right, here we go. Come on, Gina. Come on, Josh. Oh, hey! Ooh, and I know this town like the back of my hand. I can remember still all of this land where the houses now stand, and the highways took over the trees. You're doing good, Mike. Right. And you tell yourself you've got it all figured out. Well, life throws you a lemon tea, just throw them back. You're a slave to the system, and you can't get it out of your head that if you don't fix it, you'll wind up here till you're dead. All right, here we go. So goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, and goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, and goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, I'm done. You're doing great. Do it again. Come on. Goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, and goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, and goodbye, goodbye, I tell you, I'm gone. All right, Josh, you and me. I sing, and then you do something sweet. How come we can't just figure it out?
Yeah, I love. Uh-oh. I love the participation of people. They seemed really into what you guys did, and that was your first song release with Common Good, right? In 2015, Goodbye was.
Yeah, was it 2015? Is that?
I think that's what was in the research, but you'd know probably better than me.
No, I think that you're right.
Okay.
You know, whatever iTunes says is right. We recorded that song at Cube Recording Studios in Falls Church, where I've done a lot of recording. And but yeah, I'm really proud of that video. It's a really cool video.
Yeah, it's different, and it also shows you guys your core there. 2020 was a pain in the ass to all, especially my last 80 guests. You're probably close to the 80th, and what a ride it's been. And everybody has commonalities, like the fact that they continued doing their music. And you released Back of the Line, and it was another song that was featured across the board with the Post, with American Songwriter Magazine, Voice of America, where I worked for 4 years as a writer-producer, CNN, Al Jazeera. Give us a little bit of an intro, and then we'd love to hear you play that song, Back of the Line, for us.
You know, I have a very small family, and my immediate family is just my parents and I.
Yeah, like me. I'm an only child as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, because I'm an only child and my family is small, I'm very close to my family.
Yes.
So I'm used to seeing my parents every week or every other week and talking to them almost daily. And you know, the COVID for me was you know, tough, because my norm was extremely different than what we started to go through. You know, if it had been, you know, that I lived on the West Coast and my parents lived on the East Coast, maybe nothing would have been too different in that regard. But
Right.
you know, not seeing them for 4 months when I was used to seeing them every week or two was really hard. And not seeing my friends, and not, you know, as a musician, and you're a musician, Steve, I mean, you're used to seeing lots of people all the time, because
Totally.
you're used to going to clubs and going to fairs and festivals and seeing people, whether you know them or not. But you know, as a social musician whose job it is to entertain and to talk to people after gigs, whether you know people personally or not, you are meeting people all the time. And to suddenly go from that to just the person that you're living with was really, really tough. And you know, for me, Back of the Line was, you know, a feeling of missing people and wanting things to, you know, imagining, wishing things were kind of back the way that they had been before. And I wrote that song, and I was playing it live, kind of workshopping it live when I was doing all my Facebook Live shows, and people encouraged us to record it. And I went to a guy named Jarrett Nicolay's recording studio. Jarrett is the bassist for the band Virginia Coalition.
Yeah, they're great.
And
love them.
He has a recording studio that he in his retrofitted garage. And I've done a lot of recording there over the last 2 years. And he was really cool. Because of COVID, he set me up in his lobby, not in the normal recording studio. He basically put all the mics and the mic stands and the cords in there, like, I think like 48 hours before I showed up and just let it sit there and everything die, so that, it was a fairly, as sterile as non-scientists would call it, sterile.
Right.
Um, and we went in there and re-recorded Back of the Line, and my buddy Eli's Staples added a little piano, and Jarrett added a little bit of just a tiny bit of guitar, and that's what it sounds like now on
Yeah.
iTunes and Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah, I love it. I listened to that version a couple of times so far. Well, we're lucky because you're going to roll for it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, to do a little bit of Back of the Line, Justin Trawick.
This could be all just a dream. I could open my eyes and everything would seem back as it was, back as it used to be. I want to tell you the truth. I've never been more afraid to lose the people I know and the things we used to do. Running backwards, fading fast, back of the line, back of the line, back of the line again. Leaning into wind that's blowing me back of the line. Back of the line, back of the line again. Dreams from an ordinary way. I just said the wrong word. I see every once in a while when you do songs, you say the wrong word and it makes no sense. I'm gonna do it again. Dreams from an ordinary day have never been as vivid as today. I can remember every single thing. I want to feel the sun. And I want to reach out my arms and simply touch someone, or I just settle for their face. Running backwards, fading fast, back of the line, back of the line, back of the line again. That's blowing me back of the line, back of the line, back of the line again. Running backwards, fading fast, back of the line, back of the line, back of the line again. Wind that's blowing me back of the line, back of the line, back of the line again. I want to tell you the truth. I've never been more afraid to lose the people I know and the things we used to do.
Dude, All right. There's a lot of things I'd like to say after hearing that. There's so many. I love it. I love your style. It's in my heart. I'm an Americana. I guess you call yourself an urban folk guy. And Ryan Adams keeps popping up in my brain when I hear you.
Sure.
Big fan of his. But look, we'll talk briefly about what happened that kind of gave you a scare in your voice. And then we'll get into a little bit more of your history. But because I just heard you sing, and it sounded beautiful, and I knew you had been through some scary times. Give us a little bit of a nutshell of how you dealt with that vocal issue going into a pandemic and then out and then needing surgery. Give us kind of your philosophical thought about that.
I mean, in a nutshell, I was in the recording studio in 2019. See, Steve, I've got like 8 songs that are unreleased because I recorded all these songs and they were ready to go for a 2020 release, and then the pandemic hit and I didn't know how to release them. Because as a full-time musician, that's very much a local regional musician. Releasing songs is best done in a live setting at a show where people can come out and hear those songs or buy a CD or buy a vinyl or anything like that.
Sure.
And so because we couldn't play live, I wasn't releasing them. But in 2019 I was recording those songs, and I unfortunately I felt something change in my voice one day when I was singing a particularly loud song, and about a month later, when I just kind of was worried enough about it, I went to my doctor, and the doctor said I had blown a blood vessel in one of my vocal cords. And
Wow.
and I saw a couple other doctors and specialists, and they had recommended not getting surgery, but getting vocal therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and that was good. But then the pandemic hit, and I couldn't see those people anymore because telehealth really hadn't become as popular yet in the very beginning of the pandemic versus halfway through or even
Mm-hmm.
now. Um, and so, but also being a full-time musician, I still had to figure out ways to make money. And so, when you see me doing any of these Facebook Live performances that I did all of last year, up until really a couple weeks ago when I've started doing them solo again, I was always doing them as a duo, partially because I wanted to have that like duo morning show, radio show kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, experience of like having a partner and being able to bounce ideas off just like you and I are talking now.
Right.
But also very, very much utilitarian. I needed someone else to do this speaking and do a little bit of singing because I wasn't fully able to do it all myself
Right.
because of what I was dealing with.
Sure.
Um, and so, um, you know, if you listen to that recording, you're basically listening to me singing through having a blown blood vessel that essentially turned into a polyp on my vocal cords. And then this past March in 2021, my doctor suggested getting surgery, and that's basically when we could start doing it anyway because they really weren't doing elective surgery before that.
No.
Um, and So it was crazy. Like I couldn't talk for 7 days. I couldn't sing for 2 months, um, and I was basically out of commission, short of a little bit of Facebook Live stuff with my buddy Mike. I was basically out of commission from March 18th to about May 20th or so. Um,
Wow.
but
Incredible.
which is the longest time. I don't know how long it's ever been for you, Steve, to not play a gig or not, sing or play an instrument. Um, I mean, I was playing guitar and stuff, but for me before that, it'd been like maybe a week.
Right.
So for 2 months to go by was really kind of incredible. It's not that I did plenty. Like I was booking all kinds of shows for my triumphant return. Um, so I was definitely working, but
Right.
I just wasn't singing.
Yeah, I'm with you completely in the brain on that note. I told you when were talking in some pre-meetings that I had a nodule and lost my voice live at JV's with 100 people and watching our band play. And I was like, oh, this is bad. But I couldn't sing for a couple months either. And you do take it out of you. And luckily, my partner Suzanne and I created the Greek and the Freak, the duo that is now doing pretty
Sorry,
well.
what is it called?
It's called the Greek and the Freak.
Oh,
She is a first generation Greek, and it rhymed. So, but she picked up a guitar. I've talked about this on a lot of shows. She's a classically trained clarinetist, plays with the Main Street Community Band in Fairfax, but she hadn't picked up a guitar in about 35 years. And she saved my head. I was ready to go crazy not being able to sing. So I understand where you are coming from. We're going to show a couple of wonderful things you did this year as we go full circle towards the end. But I want to delve a little bit into the life of Justin Trawick a little bit, because you're from here. You're born in Leesburg. You had a kind of a wonderful place living across from a Civil War cemetery, I think you told me.
well, a pre-Civil War Civil War cemetery.
Yeah, and that's the history in this area with all of that is Manassas, and God, everything is so incredible. But what were the early musical sounds in your head? What were some of those in the beginning of your life? Maybe until you were at 13 and started writing songs. What kind of started perpetuating music in your head?
Well, when I was a kid, neither of my parents were musicians.
Right.
And to my parents correct me when I say this, but I don't mean this badly, but my parents weren't necessarily music people. They did enjoy music. We did go see concerts and stuff like that. But they weren't record collectors. They didn't live and breathe music like some of my peers siblings or parents did.
Right.
I think that when they talk about like music, like things skipping a generation,
Right.
I really do think in my particular family, it did skip a generation. My father's mom, whose name is Lenore, and she was named after the Angel Lenore in Edgar Allan Poe's poem *The Raven*.
Oh.
She was born in 1919, Quitman, Arkansas.
Ooh.
And she had learned how to play piano when she was a kid. Her mother and father owned a very large, essentially, I would say mansion, although I don't truly know, but it was much larger than any of the other houses in the area.
Right.
It would have been the equivalent of a no stoplight town, but they owned a very large house that they used as a boarding house for people driving in horse and buggy to and from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow.
Because that was about 60 miles or so from where they lived.
Sure.
And, but pre-car, you couldn't make that trip in one day.
Right.
So people would stay the night at their place. And her mother, whose name was Zula, which I think is the coolest name ever, would, cook for the people staying there. But she would also cook for people in the town. And
Wow.
people would come and get a meal from Zula during the day, when they were taking a lunch break. And they had bought my grandmother a baby grand piano, and they would open the French doors of the house, and people would sit and eat the food that Zula had made while my grandmother played piano, and people listened to it.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it's what I think is really amazing. My grandmother told me before, if you and I want to learn how to play music nowadays, nowadays we can just turn on our phone, go to YouTube, listen to a song. I have to do that often when I play a wedding or something
Sure.
like that. I have to listen to a song, see how it sounds, then I have to learn it.
Sure.
And then when we were kids, you could get well, yeah, it's the same way. When my grandmother was a kid, there wasn't a recording to listen to. So when she was in a store and she was looking at sheet music to play piano, she was like, "How does this go? How does this sound?" And the person that worked at the store would have to sit at a piano and play it for her, so she could hear how the song sounded and decide if she wanted to buy the sheet music.
Oh my God. That
Which,
is, yeah, I love that. Your life as a musician began a little bit when you were 13. You started writing songs. Now, how did that begin? And we'll talk about finding your father's guitar, which you didn't know existed.
Yeah, I mean, I had become I had my parents got me piano lessons when I was in first grade. My teacher's name was Paula. I hated Paula, and Paula hated me. I mean, in a very kind of like probably funny now kind of way, but like I just didn't want to be playing piano, and she didn't want to be giving lessons to a person who didn't want to be there.
Right.
And when I was in sixth grade, I learned how to play saxophone, and I actually played saxophone all the way from sixth grade to the end of college.
Oh, wow.
I played in all the jazz bands.
Great.
And, I look back on it now, Steve, and I remember kind of like, Lisa Simpson-ish. I remember when I was in eighth grade and ninth grade making up little tunes on my saxophone and not really knowing what I was doing, but I was making up like little riffs that were like, songs.
Wow.
And so I can think back on that now and know that I had the kind of early innate ability to create an improvisational tune,
Sure.
But yeah, I grew up in a pre-Civil War house in the country, just outside of Leesburg, between Leesburg, Virginia, and Hamilton, Virginia, about 45 minutes west of D.C. And, as an only child, growing up in kind of like the woods in a real creaky old house with a cemetery across the street and an abandoned town in our woods with a car with massive trees grown up around it in the middle of the woods, like there was a lot of things to be kind of a little freaked out about as a superstitious kid. We had a closet in our house under the staircase to our second floor, and it was the summer before ninth grade. My dad was at work selling real estate. My mom had gotten off of work at United Airlines, and I was at home with her. And I was bored enough that day to, superstitious, scaredy cat aside, I was bored enough that day to explore this closet underneath the staircase of the
Right.
second floor. And if you've surely read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Yes.
and you remember when he's going through the wardrobe and he's pushing past like fur coats
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff, with mothballs and the smell. Yeah, and that's what it felt like, because literally there were fur coats but I remember going in there and I found a guitar, and I had never considered guitar. Guitar was never something that I had ever even dreamed of, thought
Wow.
of, had spent any time in my head. But I saw a guitar case, and I brought that guitar case out of the closet, and we brought it to the front porch. We had an old style wraparound porch, and my mom didn't even know about it. My mom, she I guess when she met my dad when they were working, she didn't know him in college, and then my dad had played a little guitar in college, and then I guess after he left college, he just kind of put it away and started working and never really played it again. It essentially turned into a time machine, and I found it 20 years later in a closet, and I opened it up with my mom, and that was the first time that I'd ever discovered guitar.
Wow.
It was like a no name classical guitar. All the strings were broken,
Uh,
but to me that was like this amazing opportunity for me to be creative in a way that I really hadn't fully delved into yet, which was not only like, not just playing a single note line, but now being able to like play a chord and tell a story over that chord.
yeah.
Um, and I started basically writing songs pretty immediately. When I was a kid, this is funny. Like when I was a kid, all my songs were like love and like happiness and stuff like that. I wrote songs about girls, but like good positive songs. And now, as a 39 and a half-year-old, with lots and lots of experience under my belt, I have all kinds of other songs,
Oh, yeah. Totally.
experiential songs.
Yeah, you do, and they're beautiful. But yeah, I hear you. It goes from whimsical to damn serious. But I love that. What were some of the as you got into high school, got into college, music probably continued to circle into your brain. What were some of the early favorites of yours? Some of the early influences in your musical brain when you started really realizing what music was?
Well, when I was in high school or college, I remember meeting a guy who got me into G Love and the Special Sauce, and I don't know if
Wow.
you know G Love,
Oh,
but
yeah, I do.
the biggest thing that I got, I mean, I liked G Love because he was doing kind of the wordplay verging on rap kind of thing. And when I was young, I thought that was really cool, and I did that, and I actually still do that a little bit. Not, I have a lot of songs that are not, but I still do some songs that have a lot of like fast lyrics and
Right.
alliteration and rhyming and stuff. And but one of the things, the thing that I got from him, which is lasted me my entire career, was my fondness for the upright bass. The G-Love has an upright bass in his band. He always has, and I have always loved the sound of the upright bass, and truthfully, the look of the upright bass. I think that the upright bass is such a cool looking instrument. It's massive, and
Totally.
um, you know, as a person who's constantly thinking not only about music but also about like, um, branding, like, you want to get people's attention any way you can,
Hmm.
and an upright bass man people stop and they're like, "What is
Well,
that?"
it's funny. I rehearsed last night. I told you I'm playing JVs on the 25th with my buddy Jess Robinson, and he just bought he's an upright bass. And last night in our rehearsal at the end, I'm like, let's do a song at JV's where you're playing it. I mean, as you just said, people are going to be like, what the hell? This is wild, even if we only do one or two songs. And so we did Fire by Bruce Springsteen. And it goes, dun, 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 dun. And then he just is able to play. I love that you did that. And that's part of the development that you went through. You also had a cousin from Austin sending you live in studio music recordings for Christmas. That's cool because
Yeah.
and that started to get it going.
K In Austin, there's a radio station called KGSR, and
Right.
KGSR, I think it's a member-supported radio station,
I think
which
it is too.
usually means they can play whatever they want.
Hmm.
Um, and they every year put out a compilation. I'm not sure what they do anymore, if they're still putting out these CDs, because nobody really has physical CDs much anymore. But for years and years, they would put out um, a usually double or triple disc compilation record of all of the live recordings of people
Oh,
that would came through and recorded in their studio. And that's where I discovered Bob Schneider, who has always been
yeah.
one of my biggest influences.
Wow.
Um, Not
Well,
only in his songwriting, but I mean, my first discovery with him was just his songs. But then when I started seeing him live and listening to live shows that were recorded online, and there are all kinds of places on the internet where you can listen to full live shows.
yeah.
That's where I really started to discover the other side of being a performer, which is, being a musician, being a singer, being a songwriter is one thing, but when you have 5 to 10 to 1,000 people in front of you, there's more to it than just singing your song sometimes.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
there's all the stuff that's in between the songs, and the way that you interact with the crowd, and the way that you might look at someone at a
Yeah.
poignant moment in a song, or the way you might, playfully call someone out. If or if someone sneezes, you'll say "bless you" to them, and like the entire audience will laugh. Like,
Well, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, so you're talking exactly what he does every live show of his life. There is moments and interaction and stuff that I can see you doing that would make complete sense. Graduated college from Longwood. You started working 9 to 5. You interned. You worked at Sound Exchange. You did some different things, but this
yep.
was the beginning or the end until you started. You kicked into music a few years later. What was the catalyst to go from 9 to 5 regular work to make that passion that music is to you now? 17 years later from when you had the 9 to 5 job or thereabouts, and what was the catalyst that pushed Justin Trawick into a musical life full
Well,
time?
I'll actually, yeah, I definitely worked a whole bunch of jobs. I mean, I actually had multiple, and I had two internships at once. My senior year of college, I was interning for Congressman Wolf,
Oh,
um,
wow.
uh, and having a radio internship at the same time, um, which was pretty awesome. And then after I graduated, I had a small stint at AOL, and worked at a communications firm, and then I ended with Sound Exchange for a couple years.
Yeah,
Um, but I'll be
sure.
honest with you, 2008. Remind me, Steve. 2008 is when we had like a crash, right?
Yeah, something there right in there.
Um, and I was laid off from my job because of that. And like me and like every other musician that we know, everyone wants to do music full time,
Yeah.
but the majority of people, the vast majority of people, don't quit their jobs. For one reason or the other.
Yeah.
They don't they don't have they're not confident enough to do it, or they just don't think it's a realistic thing to do,
Hmm.
or maybe they have families and children, and that's just not a gamble that they're willing to take. um, and truthfully, I don't want to say that I quit my job, because I really believed in myself. Like, I did believe in myself, but I also believed in the paycheck that was coming to me every 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
But I was laid off from my job, um, and then I actually I for like about 3 days was like, what am I gonna do? But what I discovered when I was laid off from my job, that I had actually been doing, Steve, I'd actually been doing music essentially full time while having a full time job,
Right.
um, ever since graduating college.
Hmm.
And without realizing it, I had essentially created a sizable amount of work for myself
Wow.
without really knowing what I was doing. So
Hmm.
that when suddenly I didn't have anywhere to go during the day, I realized, well, oh my God, like, I actually have all these venues that I could be playing, and
Oh,
it looks like I actually could support myself.
wow.
It was truthfully a little, uh, it was, my parents, who had one or two jobs their entire life, a very baby boomer kind of thing. It was a little hard for me to figure out ways to explain to my parents, like, yeah, I'm not going to get a real job again. Um,
Yeah. Not uncommon.
but
That is true.
when I started playing the Kennedy Center for the fourth and fifth and sixth time, like, they started to be not that they weren't supportive. My parents have
Sure.
always been incredibly supportive, and I owe a ton to my parents. But I understood their worry, and I still understand their worry.
Sure.
I don't want to be 80 years old and be where I am today. Like, we all have, relatively speaking, we all have goals in our life and things that we want to continue to do and progress and stuff like that. And I don't feel like I'm in any kind of way at all where I want to be yet, but I'm happy with the progression of what I've done.
Yeah,
Um,
I would be.
and and yeah, so I started doing music full time from that. That was 2008. Now it's 2021, right?
Yeah, 13 years. That's a hell of a run already. You moved to Arlington a little bit before that.
About
Um,
2006 or so.
2006. What was the reason for that? And it also, speaking of venues and connections, it's a neat place to be as a musician is about to enter into a full-time life as a musician.
When I graduated college, I was still living with my parents for a while in
Yep.
Leesburg, but I was starting to do open mics, and Iota Club and Cafe was
One of the
in
greats.
it was in the Clarendon neighborhood,
Yep.
and I got to um, you know meet Steve and his sister,
Oh,
who
perfect.
ran that place, and
Hmm.
I started doing the open mic there, and I still have friends that I've met today. I still have friends today that I met back in 2005,
Oh, I bet.
playing that open mic. I have friends named Ben and Cecilia, who I met at playing the open mic around 2005 or so. They were on their, I think, first or second date,
Oh,
and now I'm essentially, like, I go to their house on Sundays for brunch, and
oh,
they have two children that are, I think, like 7 and 8, and they're awesome. And so some of my fondest memories as a beginning, really not even beginning, as a musician in my 20s and 30s, was playing Iota. We probably sold it out about 10 times or so, and with my band, various versions of
I
my
bet.
band.
I bet. You're Laura Segaris, who you probably know
Yeah, of course.
well, of course, and also Michael Tash.
Yep.
They mentioned the Iota in the show that I did with them. It is such a wonderful place. I went as much as I could go, and then boom, we lost it. You 2007. So before you maybe decided to go full time, you debuted How to Build Life with a lemonade stand. So you started putting out yourself went to the next level? I'm going to do a record. Were those songs that had been building for a long time, or did they all come quickly around that time?
Oh no, they're all songs that had been I had been
Yeah.
writing for a long time. Songs that I sung in college. I was in a band in college called Woodburn Road. My band in college was
Oh,
the name Woodburn Road was from the street that I grew up on as a kid. I was dating a woman who I'm still very good friends with. Her name is Jamie. Um, she, I don't think that she'll be offended by this. At some point in college, we dated for 3 of the 4 years in college, and at some point early on when I was playing songs for her, she was a very good singer. I think my version of this story is that she said something like, "Yeah, I don't think you have a really good voice. I have a good voice. I should sing your songs." So, the Woodburn Road was fronted by her.
oh,
I wrote all the songs and played guitar, and then we had a bass and drummer and a saxophone player near the
oh,
end of school.
fun.
And we were mainly just a campus band, but we played
Cool.
in Richmond a little bit in Northern Virginia.
Neat.
Um, but um, you know, as a performing musician um, that plays predominant, whose predominant income is playing, gigs on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury to do what a lot of big famous bands do, which is like not debut any of their songs until the record comes out.
Right.
So whenever an album comes out, it's new to someone, but it's not new to people who know me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people who know me have heard these songs a billion times. It's just now officially on a record.
Exactly. Well,
So
they've heard it live, and now they get the studio version, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Except 2008, boom, look at that. And I loved when I first saw that live at IOTA. You did it out. You did a record recorded live from there.
Yeah, I did
What a
that. My supervisor at Sound Exchange actually recorded on
oh
that. He's the saxophone player. Um, my his name is Junior Bryce. His stage name is Junior. His name is Jeff Bryce, but Junior is what we all call him.
oh
And he was my supervisor at Sound Exchange between 2006 and 2008. He had actually. It was a pretty neat job because it was a music industry job. So we got to meet musicians because we were collecting royalties from musicians, and I'm pretty sure he met the Temptations when he was
oh
working there, and he actually got to tour with the Temptations playing saxophone for them.
God.
Um, and I had met the Indigo Girls, and I
Oh,
was on a first name basis with Elena Holly, and I had done royalty work for Radiohead. But yeah, so I had become friends with my supervisor, and he played saxophone on that record.
oh, that's great. And I love looking back and the beloved feeling you have, as well as so many others for IOTA. It just is so wonderful that you actually did a live record that you can keep for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah.
Around that time, as things began to really develop, before a number of records that you would release, EPs and things like that, you founded the Nine, and that's where I first your name came up on a couple of shows, as I said, because of people that you've had in the Nine with you. And I love it. For people who don't know, it's a quote unquote touring collective and live show featuring 9 acts performing together for one evening of songs and collaboration. And as before we show about a 2-minute little clip of the 9 Songwriter Series intro that you did, and I love that because you get a sense of some of the musicians. It's fun. You have some of the album names are close and all that stuff. In a nutshell, Justin, why did you come up with that? And again, we talked a little bit about giving crowds to these people, but what was in your heart and soul to begin the Nine?
I was still working my day job in 2008,
Okay.
and I was trying to come up with a way for me and my friends to get in front of more people and into
Right.
better venues.
Wow.
As a person that is still locally based and still predominantly plays in the region, I've had a lot of luck and I can draw a crowd, but it's only relative to the size of the venue that you're playing.
Right.
And we all wanted to get into whatever the next level we couldn't get into yet was.
Right.
And so the Nine was, me figuring out a way to band together with a group of people and collectively pack a room that we couldn't do on our own, but with the group of people. Like if we each drew 15 people, we could draw total 135 people in a room.
Yep.
And 135 people in the room would make any venue booker or owner of a small club very happy. And I reached out to this guy named Steve Lambert, who at the time was the booker for DC9,
Right here.
which is your backdrop in your video. And I said, you know, what if we did a collective show called The Nine at DC9?
Perfect.
And you know, to this day, I kind of I joke around. The Nine is a large group, and sometimes it's a long show. And I try really hard to make it as swift as possible. But sometimes I joke, and I was around every once in a while. I go, I wish, you know, that place was called DC8 or DC7.
Right.
But it was DC9, and essentially it's a 9-person collective show, run in a very unique way, and with you know, where the biggest part of it is the collaborative element of it. A lot of musicians are kind of across the board with how they interact with other musicians. Some musicians come from like an improvisational background, kind of like I do with playing saxophone for so many years, where like I want to improv with other musicians. I want to collaborate, and I want to get on stage and do stuff that is a little uncomfortable. And then some musicians, to no discredit to them, only want to play songs that they wrote the way that they wrote it, and because for them it's very much about like a diary, and it's a extension of their person. And they are very good musicians. I love those musicians, but they're not necessarily right for the Nine. The people that are right for the Nine are people that want to interact with other people on stage. And so I put those types of people together, and it's an amazing show when you see it, you know, because we don't rehearse at all whatsoever, and most of the times people are meeting each other that night, and I'll see that someone is a really good singer, and I'll be like, hey, I've got a song, these are the words, I'll pull it up on my phone. Like, you don't even have to memorize it, you got the words on my phone right now, sing this song with me. And in fact, here's 2 other people on the lineup, you all sing the song with me. Hey, can you do harmonies? Perfect, let's do this right now for the first time in front of 200 people at the Hamilton, or at the City Winery in New York City, or at the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center for years, except for last year because of COVID, let us put a holiday show on every year on the Millennium Stage, which is just their daily show in the Grand Auditorium, in the Grand Hallway. So the Nine has been great, you know, and I've had some fairly well-known people do the Nine. Brendan Brown from the band Wheatus did the Nine. Rachel Platten has done the Nine. So yeah, it's been really fun.
And you know, 500 different artists, I think, is what I read, and participate.
Probably more. I probably have not updated that.
Then more than 500 artists, and cities all around the East, and even as far south as New Orleans, Atlanta, even out in LA and San. I mean, it's a beautiful thing you did, and I love the collaborative nature. Let's take a quick look. We're at a gig when the Nine was going. Take a little bit look of Justin and some of these musicians talking about the Nine.
And I hope that you enjoy it. Artists could band together and play this like group show where they all drew a small crowd that, when combined, made for a really awesome full audience that made the club happy and put us in front of a lot of people where we can sell CDs and talk about our songs and tell stories.
Anthony drove from Nashville today, so
I just got out of the car and I took a shot of Jack and I chugged a beer, so I think I'm ready to go.
This first song is called Corn Blue Night. It's going to be on our next album, and this is kind of the original rendition that I brought to the band, so it's a little different.
Sure, this looks easy from your vantage over there. Show a little mercy to your nail down my heart.
A lot of times they've always shown up, you know, supporting one person, and then they leave with 9 CDs.
You guys may not have noticed that Justin and me have albums back there that have almost exactly the same name. My album is called You and Me, his album is called You and I. Is that a coincidence? I'm not sure. But what you guys should do is buy both of them so that you can, decide for yourself.
A lot of return people attending the show because the last one they came to is so good. I'm always interested in getting people on the lineup that are new, and we're always looking for people who are different. The Nine is comprised of people that are making a name for themselves locally and touring. Brendan Brown from the band Wheatus, Adam Levy from touring with Norah Jones for years, Jimmy Haha, James Davies from Jimmy's Chicken Shack in Annapolis last night. To have people who have been in front of tens of thousands of people telling me how much they enjoyed playing it is great.
Oh, she was a Libra, born and bred. She was a Scorpio in bed. She had a house from coast to coast, but never felt just...
I started it back in 2008, and now I do the Nine in about 7 different cities up and down the East Coast. Washington, D.C., New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Annapolis, Richmond, Virginia, Charlottesville.
Yeah, Justin, I love the Nine a lot, and just love the collaborative nature. It also helps musicians kind of get out and get in front of people. Two of my beloved guests that I had on, Laura Segaris, who I just had on for her second appearance on Living on Music, and also the amazing Juliana McDowell, who I adore her voice as well. Both loved every second of the Nine. So you made some influences there, and they had mentioned you, and I'm like, I got to get them on. And then boom, here we are. Over the next few years, you started putting out some stuff. You had Starting Over as an EP in 2009. You had After All Is Said and Done in 2010. You and I in 2011. It seemed like you really were on a bit of a roll there with your songwriting and your execution of stuff. Was that a positive kind of growth period for Justin Trawick?
Yeah, I mean, because I was suddenly doing music full time.
Wow.
When Starting Over came out, I don't remember all the songs that are on Starting Over. It's an EP, and I recorded it in South Carolina. My uncle has a studio in North Augusta, South Carolina, and I had recorded it over a weekend while still with the job, with my bass player and a drummer, and then when my job ended, and I think I told you a while ago that I took like 3 days to figure out what I was going to do and think about things. I wrote this song called Starting Over, and Starting Over was about literally that. Like, I feel like I'm starting over, not having a job, now doing music full time. And my buddy Nathan Chrysler, one of my very good friends, now he's married and he has a kid and he's got all kinds of responsibilities. But, then when he was not married and didn't have a kid and had way less responsibilities, I was like, Nathan, I want to drive all the way back to South Carolina just to record this one song. I'm going to just do it live. It's going to be really, really quick. Do you want to go on a road trip with me? And he was like, yeah. So we drove all the way to South Carolina just to record one more song for this EP. And I'm really happy with it, and doing music full time probably gave me more. I mean, definitely gave me more time and opportunity to work on things like recording and writing and booking. So there was definitely, if you were looking at some sort of, graph, there definitely would have been an uptick in activity, from 2008 onward.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it was that kind of phase of you where you had the Justin Trawick group, which was largely, as we talked about, a variety of musicians, a variety of musicians that you had in different live shows and things like that. That was really a wonderful period for you as well. Then you got the thought, I want to kind of focus more. I want to be a little more pinpointed. You dropped the drums, you added a mandolin, and you formed the Common Good, which to date seems like, I've been playing a lot of the Common Good. It's right in here for the last month or two, and I love what you guys do. We're going to show a little bit of the Common Good as we get around the full circle of this wonderful chat with you. But who is in the Common Good now, and how happy are you to have this as well as your solo life, and you still can, do duos and all that? The Common Good must have given you something.
Yeah, you mentioned the Justin Trawick group. The Justin Trawick group was just like our basic name for
Yeah.
when we played live.
Sure.
And the band, as you said, was a little bit different than it is now. The band for years consisted of a more standard band sound, which was like drums, bass.
Right.
There was always upright bass. There was never. It's always been upright bass, but drums, bass, electric guitar, rappers. I have DC rappers that have always sat in with my band because I really liked, having a
Fun.
variety of sounds. But what you're saying is correct. Somewhere around 2014 or 15 or 13, I really don't remember. I started kind of zeroing in on a sound because I was kind of aware that like bands that are kind of like all over the place are oftentimes harder to grasp, for some people. People like want to have like that band is this, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that band is this. And I was also becoming a little bit older and becoming a little bit more interested in specific sound myself. And so we kind of started becoming, not really purposely, but we just kind of started becoming much more of a Americana band and much more of a string band. We eventually almost entirely dropped the drums, and my electric guitar player, he played mandolin, but he suddenly started playing 100% mandolin with me as opposed to guitar. And I really started focusing on more violin and less saxophone, and then acoustic guitar. And so we kind of became a string band. And
Yeah.
with that sound, I thought that sound deserved a more unique name. And I am a Virginian. I'm from Leesburg. I went to college in Farmville, Virginia, at Longwood. Virginia is always been my home. So I wanted to have a band name that was representative of where I was from. Doing a little bit of research, I saw that there was enough bands with the name Commonwealth in it already. So I did a little Wikipedia search on Commonwealth, and part of the definition of a Commonwealth, well, first of all, Virginia is a Commonwealth, in case people are listening and don't know.
Yeah.
There's, 4 Commonwealths? It's like
Right.
Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Virginia, and something, I
Right.
think.
So I think so.
But looking up the definition of Commonwealth in Wikipedia, part of the definition was to do something for the common good. So I thought Justin Trawick and the Common Good was a good band name, and everyone else thought it was good. And that was 7 or 8 years, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And now, to me, it's just who we are. I love that band name. I think it's a cool name, and I think it's if you go back into branding, just like, having an upright bass in the band, sometimes it takes a band name for people to get interested in you. Just a name by yourself is kind of hard sometimes. 'Cause
Right.
I was playing with the band, but I would have people would just see a solo name. They're like, we don't want to just see a solo guy crying in the corner of a darkened bar.
Right.
But you get a band name and a cool band name, and like people are like, yeah, I want to see that. That sounds cool.
Right. Absolutely. And we're going to give people a taste going to this year from your Mars Arts DC and Washington Performing Arts feature that they did. And there's so many great things about that video, but I love this song. And to me, it shows a real sense of what Justin Trawick and the Common Good is. Here, you guys.
Can I tell you one thing before you showed me that?
Yeah.
So that video kills me. And the reason why it kills me is because I have become, this is the hat in that video.
Right.
I've become a hat guy. I have the world's largest head. This is a this is a Nationals hat.
Yes, it is. I noticed.
If you know baseball cap sizes, I'm not sure if this is backwards or not, if this camera is backwards, but
Yeah.
if you know baseball hat sizes, this says 7 7/8.
Yes, it does.
I have a massive head. I really do. And so when I discovered hats that fit my head probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I started becoming a hat guy. I'm not going to change the camera here, but I have hats everywhere in my apartment.
Oh.
And so I wore this hat for that video.
Yes.
And right before we started doing the live performance part of that video, I had put my guitar on You know, if you're watching the video right now, I put my guitar strap on, and the strap knocked the back of my hat down. The hat's supposed to be up the entire way, like the cool way that you see all the American Idol contestants or the Voice contestants, or the guy shopping at some sort of mom and pop,
Right.
tobacco store. It's supposed to be up the entire way, like
Right.
I'm intellectually, up
Yeah,
there.
like Elvis
Well,
Costello wears like
it
that.
popped down. So the entire video that you're about to show, the whole back of the hat is popped down, and it makes me it just irks me inside. It really does.
Oh God.
I watch it, I'm like, that is so stupid.
Oh, that's so funny. God. Well, again, you certainly have a right to feel like that about the hat, but boy is the song strong as hell, because it shows the violin strength, and it shows the mandolin strength, and it shows your strength. So everybody, don't feel bad about Justin's hat. But let's go to St. Vincent Wine in DC in 2021 for a little five and dime.
1, 2, 3, woo! Tip your hat so sweet to the south side. Gotta hand it to them, they were right on the first try. We got those big dreams swinging from the roof beams. I take a walk about it when I show up in my hoopty. I never told you where I think I'm really going, cause I never had a reason yet to show you my hand, but check it. Now or never, baby, baby, now or never, baby. Come on closer and I give you my plan now. Goddamn, look at my life, standing on the corner of a 5 and dime. Looking over my shoulder, living every day like it's my last. Oh hell, how do I tell? Friend or foe, you just don't know. I hope I'll make it through the day, but for now I'll just live for today. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, da, 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 da. What? Dominoes are falling, fate is calling. I got about a full of Hennessy, now you're starving, darling. We got a fire still, everything must go quick, got the door ready, set, go! Running away from me, stopping like a centipede. Gotta make room for the fresh new improve me. And every day is a gift that you throw away. Dug by another man, tries to run a rainy day. Goddamn, look at my life, standing on the corner of a 5 and dime. Looking over my shoulder, living every day like it's my last. Oh hell, how do I tell? Friend or foe when you just don't know? I hope I'll make it through the day, but for now I'll just live for today. Oh yeah, come on, Come on, play the mandolin, Josh, yeah. Standing on the corner of a 5 and dime, looking over my shoulder, living every day like it's my last. Oh hell, how do I tell? Friend or foe when you just don't know? I hope I'll make it through the day, but for now I'll just live for today.
Oh man, now I can't stop looking at your hat. But again, that is so wonderful. You just, there's a surging sound. You've made something special with these guys. Who are the members currently of Common Good?
Have you ever seen the old black and white photo of all the jazz musicians in New York City on the steps of a building?
Yes.
I dream, and it's funny, I dreamed of doing this like 10 years ago, and now there's so many more people. I dream of one day getting all the people together on the steps of some sort of building that have ever played with me and getting a photo, because there's tons and tons of people.
I bet there are.
But at the present moment, the people that play with me most regularly are Mike Tony Scoglio on the upright bass, Josh Himmelsbach on the mandolin, and Aaron Malone on the violin, but
Yes.
also there's a gentleman named Matvey Sigalov who plays violin and classical guitar with me.
Oh,
There's a woman who just started playing flute with us named Courtney King, and Courtney King is great. She's actually done a bunch of things with us recently because I've never wanted to be a band that like couldn't do something because one band member wasn't available. So
right.
I have like two or three of backups of every instrument.
Perfect.
But one of the things that I kind of learned through a friend of mine named Gina Sobel, who is another really, 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 really great musician that you should interview,
Love to.
is that flute kind of works in the same realm as a violin.
Yes.
It's kind of tonally in the same space, and a really good flute player can sound real interesting.
Yeah.
And it also, like, that's the fun thing about playing shows and having different people come in and out all the time is that, like, for me, it makes it really, it makes every show unique and fun for me as the musician,
That is, I just love that clip. I could not wait to show that. And I'm also going to show a cover song you did in a little while as we get closer to the end. 2014. This was a real busy time and a lot of really wonderful things happening. I've had dozens of Whammy winners. I became a judge of the Whammys for the first time ever this year, and that was a thrill to be able to do, although I wasn't really supposed to vote or judge any musicians I'd had on the show. And I'm like, they're all so great and they're in the Whammys. So I had to like pick and choose my categories. I can't do folk now or folk rock like you do. But you won 2 Whammys in 2014, Folk Contemporary Vocalist of the Year, and also a song we're going to hear you do for us as your second song of the day, All the Places That I've Been. Give us a little nutshell of where that song came from, and then please, would love to hear you play it.
Well, I actually told you about my grandmother already growing up in
Yes.
Arkansas, and
Yep.
that song is very much inspired by my grandmother.
Oh.
My grandmother, she was, Tom Brokaw, like 15 or 20 years ago wrote a book called The Greatest Generation.
Yes.
And, The Greatest Generation is a term referring to our grandparents' generation.
Yeah, right.
And I wanted to honor my grandmother with a song, and it's not about her. The subject in the song is not about her. It's a fictional person, but it's a fictional person living through real history.
Ooh, wonderful.
And I wrote that song. It took me about a year to write that song in its entirety. I wrote the first half of it in an evening, and then I basically let it sit for a year until I got an idea of how to finish the song. Wow. And so when you listen to this song, you're essentially listening to a story of a gentleman, first person, living through history, and then at some point there in the song halfway through there's a fork in the road. Mm-hmm. And he takes a fork that I don't start talking about. The other fork is, as he is living, I'm talking about what's going on in the world. And then that fork comes back together very poignantly at the end when something that is happening in the world affects him.
Oh, beautiful. Had no idea of the exact meaning, and now it's going to be even more wonderful. Well, we're lucky again, ladies and gentlemen, to have Justin do the song that you just heard that won Song of the Year in 2014 for the Whammys, and it's called All the Places That I've Been.
And I feel my mind is failing, and I think my skin is growing thin. And I wonder if I remember all those places I've been. And I ain't walked tall in ages, and my back just don't bend that way. And my hair was once receding, but now it's all gone away. And I was born in Oklahoma, on a farm outside of town. And I spent my days out wandering in the fields behind our house. And And I wondered what was out there beyond the fences of our home. And I left town for the army when I turned 18 years old. And I remember what it felt like as I reached onto the shore. The cool breeze and the salt air on June 6th, 1944. And I watched my friends get mowed down by the Mausers on the hill. And I don't know how I made it, but I thank God that I did. And I found myself near D.C. when the war was finally done. And I got myself a family and a wife and 3 young little ones. And I ran for public office, becoming mayor of my town. And my parents stood right by me, and my wife said she was proud. And we lived through the Truman Doctrine as Jackie took the field. And the Rosenbergs were sentenced, and segregation was repealed. And Rosa sat in silence, and Elvis sang a song. And the Cuban Missile Crisis marked the final days of John. And the Beatles crossed the ocean, and Dr. King was shot and killed. Oh, Nixon left his office, oh, as the radio star was killed. And the Challenger exploded, and Oklahoma cried. And 13 people died by 2 troubled kids in Columbine. And New York City's finest and bravest of them all climbed the city's towers minutes before they'd fall. And I remember what it felt like as my family stood and stared, because my son was of the bravest with those heroes climbing stairs. So I feel my mind is failing, and I think my skin is growing thin. And I wonder if I'll remember all those places I have been.
Well, you can see why that got the honor in 2014. That's a beauty. And it shows you at your core, man. It really does. It moved me. I loved every second of it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. You kept churning along around that time. Prior to that, you started the Circus Life. And in brief, give us a little bit of what the kind of impetus was, you and Sean Russell, to begin this wonderful thing that is still going.
The Circus Life is a podcast that Sean Russell and I started. It was I suggested it to him, and I said, he was a recording studio engineer. He was randomly placed with me on How to Build a Life with a Lemonade Stand, the record that came out in 2007.
Right.
I needed an engineer, and I found Q, and they just kind of put me with him, and we became buddies. And periodically throughout the next, from 2006 to 2013 or 14, whenever I started the podcast, but between that time, we would get lunch every once in a while, and he recorded a bunch of records for me and stuff. But I had always listened to funny talk radio when I was a kid. I grew up listening to Don and Mike.
Yeah, big time.
Before Don and Mike, I listened to Loveline with Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
Right.
And to this day, I still listen to lots and lots of podcasts, and predominantly funny ones, because that's the
Sure.
ones that, I would love to say, Steve, that I listen to the super intellectual podcasts, about all the books that I'm reading. But no, man, I just want to listen to funny jokes.
You're Don Geronimo's back on Big 100 starting in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yes.
I still listen to the Mike O'Mara Show, which is Mike's podcast now.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've become friends with Charlie Burney, who owns Podcast Village.
Nice.
Which is where they record their show.
Right.
But
oh, that's great.
But yeah, so I had told Sean, like, what if we did a podcast where, it's us talking, but we're also bringing in musical guests, and we'll do it out of Q Recording Studios where he was already working. And so we had some really good luck. We had Snuffy Walden, who had recorded all the music for Aaron Sorkin's show, The West Wing. We had Kevin Eubanks, who was the guitar player for the band leader for Jay Leno.
Yep. Yeah. Chris Thomas King. Right. Yarn. I love Yarn. They're fun. I interviewed the main guy from Yarn a number of years ago.
So we had a lot of luck with that. I still do the podcast. But truthfully, when the pandemic hit and suddenly I was having to do all these other things, Facebook Live, Zoom shows, backyard shows, the podcast, the irony being that everybody started a podcast during the pandemic, and I kind of momentarily paused my podcast during the pandemic because I had to do everything else. So I'm gonna start doing the podcast again soon. I really miss it. It's like I said, it's what I predominantly listen to. I mean, as a full-time musician, I listen to very little music. I listen to so much stand-up comedy. It's unbelievable.
That's perfect. That's your prerogative. That's wonderful. In the last 5 or 6 years, we played Goodbye, which was your last gig at the DC9 here, and that was the first single that was released under the name Justin Trawick and the Common Good. As the years evolved, you released the Riverwash EP. Mm-hmm. Now, A, how did the Riverwash come in as the name of the EP? And B, how did that develop? It must have been fun to be able to at least put together some kind of collection of songs with that band.
Riverwash Recordings, Jacob's going to be so upset with me if I have this wrong. Riverwash Recordings is the name of, it's essentially the name of Jacob Briggs' home studio in Richmond, Virginia.
Wow.
His home studio has changed because he's recently moved, so it's really more of just any record that he's recorded is from a studio called Riverwash Recordings.
Right.
And the river part of it is of the James River, which people in Richmond are very fond of.
Yes.
And the wash part of it, I'm pretty sure, is from the Family Wash, which is one of the small venues in Nashville.
Nice.
And where he had previously lived.
Awesome.
And I thought that was cool. There are a lot of records that we listen to where the name of the record is the something something sessions.
Yeah.
Which is like, whatever the name is like where they were, the recording studio they were, the city they were in.
Yeah.
The street they were on, whatever. Mm. And so the Riverwash EP was essentially that. It was a testament to the place that we'd been driving to, because that was the other thing. Every previous record I had done was at Q Recording Studios, which is about a mile and a half from my apartment. Wow. Which really was never. It was not a thing. It was just like, I'm going to go to work a mile and a half away. But to suddenly make a record for a couple drives to Richmond with the band, that was much more of a big deal. And when we were gone, I couldn't just run home for lunch. When you're in Richmond or when you're in South Carolina, like I had previously done a few years earlier, you were there for the day, whether you liked it or not. And so that was a name of that. And the the picture on the front cover of the album is a picture I took. I think it's called Belle Isle.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Richmond?
A little bit, but not probably in depth.
There's an area in the middle of the James River in Richmond that it's like real rocky and you can climb on.
Yes. In fact, Jess told me he and his wife did it 3 days ago. He told me at rehearsal last night, there's a rocky area and you go under Jefferson Davis's grave site. Yes, that's it. Yeah. Oh my God.
And so that was a picture that I took from my phone, really.
Wow.
And it's used for the front cover. It was a family swimming.
Right. I love that. And that is currently resting right there as part of the Common Goods evolution 3 years ago. Yep. We're going to slowly wrap up. But look, there's a couple of things I got to show people. And we're going to hear you end us with another beautiful live song. But there is a clip that you guys did in 2020 at the Mixtape Studios. And you did a cover song of it's a record that even as a rock fan, I fell in love with this record after I saw Saturday Night Fever 3 times, probably in the month that it came out when I was a kid. And although I continue to be a rock fan, the Bee Gees music on that is embedded in my soul. And this song, You Do Stayin' Alive. And what a version.
Is it right that I was just watching clips of Saturday Night. I've never seen Saturday Night Fever. Oh. And I was just watching clips of it on YouTube a couple of days ago.
Right.
Is it true that the Bee Gees actually wrote this song for Saturday Night Fever?
I want to think so, because they were asked to tailor, because obviously they were a little bit more pop rock, folk rock, Massachusetts, things like that.
Right.
And then they were asked to do something that would fit into the John Travolta, film type of. So I think so. Yeah. But what a song to pick for you guys, and what a version you did. I saw this like a week ago, and I was like, wow, they did Stayin' Alive. I got to see this. And it is just beautiful. When did you decide to throw that into the Common Good mix?
In 2019, we played a wedding in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Had to learn it, right?
No.
Oh.
we played a wedding in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I remember talking to my agent, and my agent, I always ask, if it rains, because if it's an outdoor wedding, if it rains, is there a rain plan? And the agent said, well, believe it or not, the bride doesn't want to have tents. And I said, is there an indoor rain plan? And they're like, no. And I said, well, what happens if it rains? Why doesn't she want to have tents? And he said, she thinks that tents are going to make it look like a funeral.
Wow.
So we drove all the way to Knoxville. We set up. It looked like a Harry Potter wedding. There was just these long, extravagant tables with beautiful candles and flowers. I mean, it was like on an estate. It was terraced. People were ornately clothed in the finest of garments, and we were 3 songs in, and it started raining, and the wedding was over.
Oh God!
So that night we stayed at a friend's house, and we got good and drunk and learned how to play "Stayin' Alive" by the Bee Gees.
Wow, that evolution is fantastic. God, and what a bride to think that the tents look like funerals. How many out of 10 weddings that are outside, how many have tents? 9.5. That's
right.
That's what a wonderful evolution of that. Here you go, you guys. This is a wonderful version of this song. Could be one of my favorites of all time. I haven't seen it covered a lot, but boy, is this fabulous. This is Justin Trawick and the Common Good with "Stayin' Alive."
You can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man, no time to talk. Music loud and women warm, I've been kicked around since I was born. It's alright, it's okay, you may look the other way. We can try to understand the New York Times effect on them. Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you can stand alive, stand alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking and staying alive, staying alive. Ah, 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 staying alive, staying alive. Ah, 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 staying alive. If I can't get either, I really try. The wings of heaven on my shoes, and I'm a dancing man, and I just can't lose. It's alright, it's okay. Live to see another day. We can try to understand the New York Times effect on man. Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you're just staying alive, staying alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking and staying alive, staying alive. Ah, 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 staying alive, staying alive. Ah, 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 staying alive. Somebody help me, yeah. Life going nowhere. Somebody help me. I'm staying alive.
Well, now I'm going to require you as a friend through my show to go see that movie. It is fabulous, and even though again it's a lot of disco, but boy, the story and Travolta's fun and it's a fun movie. But love that version and how it came to be. Justin, as we got into this last year, we talked at the beginning of the show about how you survived this last year. There's a couple of things I want to show before we hear you do a beautiful song to end. One of them is the NPR Tiny Desk Contest from 2021 at the Midnight Forest Farm in Lovettsville.
Yep.
And you were a trooper. And so people will see this and they'll just never forget it. But you were going to sit right in the middle of a sheep field, and then the sheep were brought into the mix, and you dealt with it. You were kind of looking around a little bit, but you didn't miss a beat. That in a nutshell, how did that evolve into the Tiny Desk Contest presentation?
Well, like I said about the one we did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic hit, with the one for 2020, I did something unique, and I wanted to make sure that I was. When you do something unique, you have to try to figure out what to do the next year. Otherwise, it's just lame, you know. And so I had posted on Facebook. Does anybody have any good suggestions for a place for me, like a unique place for me to do a video? And one of my friends from high school, her name is Dorothy. She and her husband Kirk own Animal Farm in Lovettsville, Virginia, and they were like, yeah, we got goats and chickens and
Wow.
sheep and I'm forgetting two other, and ducks and something else. And she's like, take your pick. What do you want to do it with? And the sheep were basically going to be the least dangerous of them.
Right. Yeah, horses
probably
might have been a little bit like this, and goats might have nipped, right?
Yeah, although I think goat
Or
yoga is
kicked.
probably going to be in my future. I think there's going to probably be some sort of goat yoga one where like I'm just laying down and there's a goat on me and I'm singing.
There you go, 2022 NPR Tiny Desk done with a goat.
But basically, the idea was I was going to do a video with them around me, but the only way to ensure that they would be around me would be to feed them when I was playing.
Right.
But you can only feed them once, so there's only one take. There was
funny.
not multiple takes. We did not know what was going to happen. We just knew that the goats or the sheep were going to come wherever I was. And Dorothy and Kirk were awesome. They were able to not only provide the sheep, but they had an old like children's desk from like an old school. And it's one of those desks that like opens up when you can put books inside of it. And so what they did was they poured all of the sheep feed into the desk, which was next to me, because there has to be a desk in the Tiny Desk video.
Yes.
And And then it just kind of goes haywire from there.
It is amazing because you see
Yeah.
you see him coming out, and then it all of a sudden like food, and the thing. Now, this is classic, you guys, and actually, this song is the title cut to your EP, Starting Over, right?
Yeah, this is the song that I wrote after my job ended, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do.
Well, here is Justin Trawick in a sheep field singing a beautifully deep song about the next phase in his life a few years ago. A little bit of Starting Over.
I knew everything, at least I thought I did, till everything changed. Now I found myself starting over, jumping on a bed. As a kid I'd hit my head and you'd begin to think that you'd learn from the pain. But it's not that easy when you throw out the old book and everything is way more exciting. And I want everyone to understand I'm not the same man I've always been. You're running down a dream as the world revolves and everything seems like it's working against you. I have no idea how long all those people stood in line to hear your song that you wrote when you were crying. How you can take one more day of this is the last time you'll write about this. I made myself a plan. I'm not the same man I've always been. Take yourself out of the picture here. Could you stand to watch someone else try, my dear?
Bah. Yeah, I mean, wow. And you can hear them and they're like, where do you get to eat? And we don't care if this guy's in here playing guitar, but what a wonderful thing you did. And I can't wait. I want to hear it from you. You'll have to let me know or find me where to post, where you're going to post the next one, because I love how you try to evolve the different things here. We're coming close to the end, but we've got a couple of pieces of music that are going to be wonderful parts of you. In 2021, you released I'm Doing All Right. And you've been singing it as a theme song, part of the chorus for a long time, through the backyard shows. What was the impetus to finally release the song I'm Doing All Right?
Well, so yeah, the I'm Doing All Right is a reimagined version of my song How to Build a Life with a Lemonade Stand.
Right.
During the pandemic, starting March 12th, 2020, when I did my very first Facebook Live show, I thought that, these shows are, because they're on the internet, and because attention spans are far, far different, watching something on a screen versus watching it in person.
Yep.
I really needed to treat this a little bit differently than like a live show in front of people. I needed to treat this more like a TV show, with funny banter and jokes and songs and communicate, and talking back with the people who are commenting with us, kind of like a Regis and Kathy Lee or whatever the most recent version of that is.
Yeah.
So with every TV show, there has to be some sort of opening theme song. I mean, you've worked in television.
Yeah.
So my opening theme song was the chorus of How to Build a Life with a Lemonade Stand. And the chorus is super simple, but it's a song that I think that would make people feel comfortable in an uncomfortable time. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Doing all right. And we've literally done that for 134 episodes.
Oh, God.
For the majority, for all of 2020 and for all of 2020, we were doing that show twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays, because we had nothing else going on Thursdays and Sundays because we were all at home.
Yep.
And I would always start every show with that. And I even do some of our live shows in person, even with the band, with that sometimes now.
Oh.
But this year, 2020, I had the idea. I had done it before. I remember playing at the 930 Club probably in like 2009 or 10. And doing this alternative version of that song live. But I had decided to finally record an alternative version of that song, and it really specifically shines with my violin player, Aaron Malone. Aaron Malone recorded 8 different fiddle and viola parts to make it sound like an orchestra is there with us.
Wow.
At least the string section of an orchestra. And it sounds really, really cool. I hope that people like it. And, I want to tell everyone listening, the I'm doing all right thing, like I said, we were doing that because I wanted people to know that I'm all right, and I was hoping that they're all right, because we all kind of needed, positive reinforcement in a world where there was a lot of lacking of it last year, and even into this year.
Yes.
So I recently created a shirt that I've been very lucky with. A lot of people have been getting this shirt. I don't tell. Is this backwards on the video? Or
No, it's fully straight. I love it.
So it's literally a shirt that says "I'm doing all right." And I've actually, in the last about 3 or 4 months, I've sold over 200 of these shirts.
Oh, where did I see that? Did you wear it to the Cancer Can Rock benefit?
No, I didn't wear it, but I sold them there.
Then I saw them there.
And you probably saw a couple people wearing them there.
I did. Yeah.
And it's amazing. All these people that watched us during the pandemic sold out my first run of those shirts, and I had to order more. And it's just really, really great. If you're listening, go to I'mDoingAllRight.com. And you'll see the shirt that I'm talking about. And order 1 or 2. A lady ordered, a lady down the street here in Arlington, I can't remember what type of family member it was. I think it was like her aunt or a grandmother or something, but someone was essentially turning like 80 years old. And she bought 9 of them for all of her family members to wear for the birthday party. Oh
God. That must have been a heart glower for you. Oh man.
It was really nice.
I love that.
When I'm at my live shows and I'm telling people about our shirts, I'm like, and if you don't want a positive message shirt, I also have non-positive message shirts, like this one that says Virginia's for ex-lovers.
Oh my. Wow. Yeah, that hits home for a number of people in Virginia. That's incredible. Well, look, here is a beautiful version of what Justin has just been describing. One of my favorite songs that I've heard in a good while, and I've heard of a lot of them doing Living on Music. But this is Justin Trawick at his core and at his most recent, featuring Aaron on a selection of string moments with "I'm Doing All Right."
Rainy breeze, I'm coming on down on a multi-street. I am feeling a little tired. Will I fight for a dirty old man with a wooden pipe? Oh, I'm feeling a little inspired. Oh yeah. Palm trees, where the roots dig deep near the Baltic Sea. Oh,
turning cartwheels underground. An old window, and you look on through that where that red fern grows, where my childhood is found. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a place to put yourself at the moment, even though you'd been playing that throughout the last year in choruses, to have it come together like that. It just shows where you're going, man. And, you know, pandemic be gone, and you're going to keep surging as you always do. I love that, man. It has been such a great ride. We have been so lucky to have you, and we are so lucky to get one more Justin Trawick song. Tell me a little bit about, and then play us, The Bright Side.
The Bright Side I wrote a few years ago, more than a few years ago. And The Bright Side is loosely written about Ed Asner sitting at a bar giving people advice throughout the throughout the course of an afternoon or an evening. I have a bunch of songs, Steve, that are each verse is a vignette, where like each verse is a short is a singular story about someone, and then the chorus itself is more of like a bringing it all together kind of call to action. You know, I have a lot of songs that are those vignettes are having something to do with someone's life where it's often not going right, and then the chorus is like trying to basically kick everyone's butt and get them going in the right direction.
Right.
And The Bright Side is very much that song. I'm proud of that. You know, I most of my songs are about some type of life kind of thing. I realize that how vague that is, but this is a fairly positive, poignant song that people really like, and I love to play. And I know that we just lost Ed Asner, which is really sad. I mean, I've always had a fondness for him, which is why I envisioned him in this song. If you go to my Twitter, Steve, have you ever heard of Cameo? You know what Cameo is now?
Yes.
Two of my friends last year actually got Ed Asner to do a cameo for me, and it's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed, and it's him talking about The Bright Side.
I think I saw it when I booked you. I did.
I realized that you've planned a lot of these videos before our conversation, but now maybe at the very end of our video or something like that, you can add the video of him talking to me.
Well, before you do The Bright Side, ladies and gentlemen, here is a bonus for you. Here's Ed Asner, who we adore. I've said this quote for the last 2 weeks up and down, that you've got a lot of spunk. I hate spunk. And, you know, and I loved him too. He was right in my generation as well. And before we hear this wonderful song, here's a treat for you. Ed Asner talking about The Bright Side.
Hi, Justin. How are you? This is Ed Asner. Would you believe it? I'm actually I'm mingling with the fans. Listen, you inspired the song, The Bright Side. I heard that song, and I can't get it out of my head. Have you heard it? Not the right side, not the wrong side, just the bright side. And that's what I espouse, the bright side. I hope you're having a great day. You create great songs. If you're responsible for that, you can tell Guy Palumbo and Lauren Lemunyon that I totally agree. We're all in agreement. The bright side is your side, and you inspire that side. God love you. Take care, pal.
Yeah, that's just stirring to see him do that, and then we just lost him. But what a wonderful thing for him to do. And yeah, I remember seeing that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, Oh my, what an incredible thing. That is great. Well, look, let's hear a little bit from Justin Trawick to
Hold on,
wrap.
wait. I've wanted to do this all afternoon. I realize how dumb this is, but has anybody ever opened a can into the microphone of your podcast before?
No, please do.
All right, here we go. What is this called? Like ASMR or something?
Yeah.
Like you hear it. Are you ready? This is not any like product shill that you're not being sponsored by Deer Park, but I'm one of these people that I'm like really into sparkling flavored water now.
Nice.
And, all right, here we go. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Coke commercial or something from years ago. You know, It's the essence. That's great.
The other thing I wanted to show you is,
please.
All last year, Steve, I got into disc golf, and have you played disc golf before?
I have 3 discs that I've been in the car for about 2 years, and I have never played. There's one over here at Burke Lake Park that I really want to play, but I love to, but I haven't played.
Well, I will meet you over if Burke Lake is closest to you, or you can come out here. Bluemont is really, really close to me.
Well,
Bluemont's
let's play
5
someday
minutes
for
from me.
sure. I'd love it.
I will teach you how to play.
Please.
Disc golf is basically like regular golf, but with frisbees.
Yes.
And I got into it last year because I really needed to get out of my 750 square foot apartment during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And disc golf is just like, like regular golf, you're getting into nature. And actually disc golf, more than regular golf, you're getting into the woods. And that reminded me of, like, I'm an Eagle Scout, and I grew up, in the Boy Scouts camping. And so being in the woods for me was awesome.
Yes.
And so getting into disc golf, I was like, well, how can I, get some disc golf merch? So Innova is the biggest disc golf manufacturer, and they were the first ones to make the discs and stuff. And so I contacted them, and I had a buddy of mine. I'll find one that's a little easier to read in the video. And so that's what he created for me.
Oh, that's great.
And it's got me represented as a bear wearing a trucker hat, and my bassist is a moose, and my mandolin player is a boar, and my fiddle player is a fox.
Oh,
this guy's name is Justin Lego that created this for me, and I sold out of the first 50 discs that I had made. And now I ordered 100 more. My apartment has become just there's between my hats and there's discs. There's no opportunity to stand or sit anywhere in my apartment. But yeah, I really. So you and I are going to play some disc golf.
Oh, I'd love to do that. And what a perfect song to kick off our disc golf, because hopefully there'll be a bright side.
Tell me your name, talk to me slow, and I've got all the time in the world. Where have you been? Where did you go? I know I don't think I've seen that girl. You're running away, you're leaving this town. Could I get you a drink or two? What did you say? What did you do? Did he really want to marry you? Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. And not the right side, not the wrong side, just the bright side. I heard you were broke, so come and sit down. We could all use a friend or two. What did you say? How did it go? Why did it end so very soon? I ordered some food, so eat what you want. Tell me the things you meant to say. I like the first part, at least what you meant, and I think I'd just word it differently. Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. Oh, not the right side, not the wrong side, just the bright side. We all got something that we don't see coming. We've all been running when we started out walking. We've all got time, but time's not standing still. The days seem long till the days get shorter. The lights seem bright till the lights get darker. And you hold your head up high and say you will. Just try harder. See, Steve, normally there's a band, and we've talked, fiddle, upright bass, mandolin, sometimes flute, sometimes drums. And normally they're playing all kinds of solos right here, and it sounds amazing. It sounds like we should be in Madison Square Garden or something, Wolf Trap. When it's just me, it's much more lyrical based, and you just have to imagine that stuff. I heard that you won. I think that's great. What do you do with the money you made? Invest in some stocks or learn a new trade. And I play you in pool. But you buy the first game. You came out ahead, so we'll help out your friends. Money we lose, we're friends to the end. Tell me the time, I think that I'll go. It was nice to meet you all. Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. Just look on the bright side. And not the right side, not the wrong side, just the bright side. Just the bright side. Just the bright side. And just the bright side. And just the bright side. Just the bright side, just the bright side, just the bright side.
Well, if that doesn't encompass Justin Trawick in a million ways, I don't know what does. Man, beautiful stuff, honestly. And what a way to end our conversation. On the bright side, because that's what we all friggin' need. We've all been through something unparalleled in our lives, and the musicians world has been hit as hard as anybody. I just want to wish you the best of luck going forward. I know that you're churning along anyway, so now we just need this thing to phase out so you can get out and play live as much as you want. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on Living Music, man.
You know where I'm going right after I'm done here?
Where?
I am playing a small company's chili cook-off. I have played this, they're called Architecture Incorporated. They're a small architecture firm.
Yay, my dad was an architect, so have fun.
And I've played their chili cook-off for like the last 10 years.
Oh.
Except for last year. And just a small company, and it's not like, there's probably 50 people total. But it's so fun because we play, and then when we take a break, we walk around and we try everyone's chili, and we yeah, I like that chili. I didn't like that one. That one's my favorite. That one's too spicy. But we're heading over there as soon as I'm done with you. And thank you very much for having me. It's really been a pleasure. You're a great interviewer. I told you yesterday on the phone, don't be offended if I start interviewing you, but you were so good that I didn't really get the opportunity to do it.
Well, I really appreciate what you tell me, and again, this region and wherever you play are incredibly lucky, because you are a treasure to this area and a treasure to music, man. Thank you. I'm a singer-songwriter devotee, and I think I've become a major fan over the last few months following your music. Good luck with everything. Keep the Justin Trawick vibe going, and we will keep in close touch.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. That is one special guy. And again, how he got through not only being quarantined as a musician, which, as we've heard for the last 16 months, not only on Living on Music, but around the world, how this has affected musicians, and battling his throat issue. He really was able to ascend in a lot of ways. And hopefully, again, that will be the impetus to soar him out of this with his amazing talents. Justin, thanks so much, man, for being on Living on Music. I've wanted you on for so long, and great to meet at the Cancer Can Rock event. And thank you so much. Coming up this Monday, a week from tonight, debuting the episode on YouTube with Kathy DeToro. And Kathy is something special as well, a wonderful talent. and has been one of the lead singers for the last 5 or 6 years of one of the most popular tribute bands anywhere in this area, the Leg Warmers, an 80s tribute band who continues to sell out. Before the pandemic, and then coming out, they just played State Theater and had a safe yet quite big crowd coming and seeing them. Very popular. Kathy's a wonderful lady, and we're going to talk about her life and career and what it's like to be in this exciting, fun tribute band, and some other wonderful stories of her life. And that's next Monday. That show debuts on Living on Music. And then Johnny Holiday. I got to tell you, anybody who's lived in this area for any length of time knows Johnny Holiday's name. Not only has he become a staple of sports media in this area, especially the University of Maryland sports kind of canon, he also has an incredibly interesting rock and roll radio career, including, I guess I'll tease you with this, introducing the Beatles in San Francisco at Candlestick Park. And, so yeah, he was a radio DJ there when they came in the 60s, and boom, he got up on stage and got to help co-introduce the Beatles, among other great stories with Grace Slick. I mean, I could go on, and he will go on. You cannot miss this episode, a rare exclusive interview with me on Living on Music, Johnny Holiday, in a couple of weeks. Real quick, the Zebra Press is the beginning of ZTV and how Living on Music got started. So go to the Zebra Press page on Facebook, sign up, and you'll get wonderful information and relevant pings on things going on around not only Alexandria, but the region. And, you'll be better for it. So go there, go to the ZTV page as well, click there, and you'll also get some pings about various shows, obviously, all of them that come up on ZTV. And there's going to be a growing roster of shows. And also, we're trying to grow this out of the pandemic as well, like musicians. So go to the ZTV page. The September edition of Zebra Press was spectacular, possibly one of the best issues ever. Focusing on 9/11 and the experiences of local people, obviously focusing a lot on the Pentagon. But it was very, very special. So it is still out there in boxes around town. The October issue is coming very shortly, and that is going to be very, very cool as well. And we'll talk about that as we come into October as well. You can also go to zebra.org, thezebra.org. They have all the past editions of the Zebra Press paper on there. So you just find it on the tab, and boom, you can go. If you want it delivered to your house, which, why wouldn't you? Like, getting a paper in your hands in the morning is wonderful, and you can have that around all month as you're reading the Post or whatever else you might like in the morning with coffee and breakfast. You go right there, down on the bottom of the page there, hit subscribe, and for a very nominal fee compared to a lot of subscriptions, you can get it the Zebra delivered to your door every month. And so I'm suggesting that to you. Real quick plugs: October 2nd, We Rock Cancer, Frying Pan Farms, Herndon. Go to this website right here you see on the graphic, and if there are any general admission tickets left, because they were going fast, all the tickets, the VIP tables, everything was sold out, and then the general admission tickets, it's going to be amazing with Laura Segaris, Brian Dunn, and Pat McGee. I mean, raising money for We Rock Cancer, and also a lot of free screening for skin cancer that day. And Sunday, October 3rd, I'll be emceeing the Sound Impact Soiree, and that is to fundraise for this incredible organization, Sound Impact, that uses their immense musical knowledge and talents to educate, to connect people around the world. And it has been an amazing ride with them. They were on my show. You can find it on Facebook, on ZTV, on the Zebra page. If you go to the videos and scroll down to Living on Music, you hit 2020 or 20, I think they were in 2020. You'll find Sound Impact there. Watch the show. It's wonderful. We talked to the 3 founders. And they're amazing ladies, and I'll be seeing them on that Sunday. So that is the soiree. You can still get tickets to it, and also sponsorships if you've got the resources. It's going to be an amazing, amazing event at the Decatur House in Washington, D.C. Living on Music is a production of Zebra Press. My wonderful editor and dear friend for 40 plus years, Todd Jones. Thanks, Todd. And the publisher of Zebra Press, and an amazing lady to boot, Mary Wadland. Next Monday, hey, Leg Warmers fans, your singers here. Kathy DeToro is going to join me to talk about her life with the Leg Warmers and before, and what might be happening after. Until then, remember, everybody, stay safe, stay diligent. We need to kick this thing out of our lives. And the only way to do it is get vaccinated, wear masks when you have to. And then one day you won't have to. It's going to come sooner if we all are diligent. And also something that takes little or no effort to do to family, to friends, even a stranger if you feel it. Be the good news in someone's life. Take care, everybody.